Welcome to the Book Club Life, where we talk a lot about books, a little about life, and have awesome author interviews. Today, as you can see, I am live with Tara Johnson. Not live, but we are in real life here.
Real life together.
So, Tara is an amazing author. Her debut, Engraved on the Heart, I read last year. My book club loved it.
Aww.
And you were generous enough to do an interview with us.
It was fun.
Yes.
It was really fun. You have a great book club.
Thank
They're
you.
fantastic.
I think they're the best myself.
Yeah, they're great.
They're my clubbing friends. We like to go book clubbing. Anyways, if you haven't subscribed to the show yet, please consider doing so. We have author interviews all the time and giveaways. In fact, we are giving away Where Dandelions Bloom.
Hey!
So thank you for that, Tara.
Absolutely.
And so I first heard about Tara from our mutual friend, Laura France.
Delightful woman.
Yes.
So sweet.
I was going to my first big writers conference, ACFW, and I emailed Laura just saying, hey, do you know anybody looking for a room? And she gave me a couple of contacts, and those didn't work out, but she said, let me ask one more person. And she put a little thing out there, hey, this is my friend Jenny who wants to room with her. And Tara said, I'll do it. Actually, she didn't do that at all. She was so sweet.
I was like, yes, I'll do it. Absolutely.
Yes. You were so sweet and so wonderful, and so thank you.
It was
so
fun.
much.
We got along really well.
Yes. Yes. No snorers, although it wouldn't have mattered.
No snorers, although I have had a roommate tell me I'm way too perky in the morning. So if I was too perky,
you were
you
not.
hit it well. Okay, good.
You were so quiet that I was. I actually took a little bit longer to go to sleep than normal, just because I felt like my breathing was so loud compared to the silence.
I tried to tone my perkiness down because I've been told I'm like Snow White or Cinderella in the morning. So I was like, I'm not going to be annoying.
I am a morning person as well.
Okay, that's good.
Yes. So, and then my book club read her book, and I don't even know if I should say this, but I guess I will.
Yeah.
So I was so thankful to Tara for letting me room with her. So I didn't go to the conference not knowing a single soul. I already had a roommate and a friend. And so I was like, okay, I have to have my book club read her book. So, but I had never read it, and she was a debut author, so I didn't know if it was going to be good. So I made them read two books, Engraved on the Heart, and another one that I knew they would like, and they loved both. And everyone was just raving about Engraved on the Heart. So I highly recommend.
That's the thing with a debut author, you don't know, because they're trying to just find their place and their niche, and you don't know.
Well, you obviously have found it, and
well, thank you.
You know, you went through all of the rigors of getting an agent and getting a publisher who said, yes, we want to publish this, and
they've been awesome, and God's been good.
It was awesome, and you got a endorsement by Jocelyn Green, and this one is endorsed by Tamara Alexander.
Yes.
So this was my vacation read. That's why we're in person. My family went on vacation to Kentucky, and Arkansas is between Kentucky and Texas.
On the way home. Yes. Made it nice.
So that's how I know Tara, and I highly recommend this book. It was so good. I'm almost done with it. And one thing I like about this book is that it got better and better and better. The more I read, there were several different places in the book. It's not all in one place, and I just felt like each new setting, I just felt more and more in love with the characters. So
it makes my heart happy to hear.
Yes. So for our first section, I'm going to ask you questions that my book club might come up with.
Okay.
That are inspired by the themes of the book.
All right.
Okay, so question number one. In the book, there's a quote that says, "You'll not see an opportunity like this come again. Take it." So what is a time that you've had an opportunity or a decision that was momentous and important in your life, and did you take it, and how did it affect your life?
Wow. Okay, so I was signed with a Christian record label for 10 years, and I thought I knew what God wanted out of my life. I thought He had told me years before, I'm going to use your voice to lead people to me. And so I thought that meant singing, speaking, which I still do a lot of speaking. But I was diagnosed with gastroparesis about 8 years ago. So my stomach doesn't pump and I have to take a lot of medicine for it, and it's a pain. I get vocal spasms, and so it began to affect my ability to sing long term. I couldn't sing big concerts anymore, and so plans began to change, and I couldn't book all the stuff that I was used to booking, and I couldn't do what I thought God had been telling me to do. But I began to write more and more, and people were still following my blog, and I was getting more blog followers. And a friend told me, you really need to focus on writing, because your writing, I think, is kind of where it's at. And I was like, no, it's not. And God wants me to sing. And I kept fighting it. And finally somebody told me about ACFW, American Christian Fiction Writers. And they said, here is the conference coming up in St. Louis. You really need to go. And I was like, I don't think so, because I'm a singer. And I kept fighting that opportunity. And the money was there. And you and I both know it's not the most inexpensive conference to go to. It's expensive.
The hotel rooms are just as much as the conference.
Yes, it is. And it's an investment. It is an investment. And so I thought, I don't know about this. I don't know. And a lot of it was just pride. And I found that the more tightly you hold on to something, the more it hurts. If you've built your identity in it, the more it hurts when God has to pry your hands away from it.
Right.
So, and I built my identity in being a singer instead of in God. And so when I finally thought, okay, maybe I should do this, I went, and my very first session, I don't even remember who was teaching it, honestly, but the lesson was on a unique writer's voice.
Wow.
And the teacher was talking about how each writer writes differently, the way they compose words and string them together is all different, and how it's unique for each one. And that's when God really hit me hard. He was like, I can still use you. You will still have a voice and not have a voice.
Wow.
I was like, okay, I get it now. I understand.
Wow.
I'm a little slow. I'm blonde. I get it. And that's when things begin to change.
That is really neat. I can just imagine your heart pounding
Yes,
when they're talking about voice, and that
Yes.
had been your thing, you
Yes.
know, that you had let go of.
Yes.
That's really cool. Okay, another quote in the book says, "We learn who we were to decide who we want to be." So what is something that you've learned about who you were, or in your family's past, or anything like that, that has helped you figure out who you want to be, and who do you want to be?
I am a preacher's kid, and so there's a lot of interesting things that go along with that. You see the best and the worst, I think, sometimes, at least within Christian culture. And that I think that being a follower of Jesus can be one of the, I mean, it is the most beautiful thing, but within church circles sometimes, especially as a child growing up within church, you notice sometimes that we as Christians tend to pick each other apart. And I saw that so much growing up, and I determined I don't ever want to be that way. My husband calls me a hippie Christian. He said, "You are such a hippie," because I just learned early on. I'm kind of one of those Bob Goff type of Christians. You know, I tell my kids all the time, you have two things that God wants you to do, and that is to love God and to love people, to love God, to love people. That's it. That's all that matters. My daughter, one of my daughters was really struggling with her math grades this past year, and she's always made straight A's, and she was just beating herself up. And I said, listen, when you stand before God, He's not going to ask you what your grade in Algebra 2 was. He does not care. You know, did you do your best? Do you love God and do you love people? And that's what it goes back to over and over. So that taught me early on, who do I want to be? I want to be someone who loves God and loves people. That's what it came back to. Because I saw so many Christians just tear each other apart early on. That's what matters to me most.
That's really good. I like that. It makes it a lot more simple when you can just
Life's
focus on the
simple.
main things.
Life, yes.
Okay, another quote from the book. "This conflict, the hate is so ugly, so hideously vile. I don't want to dwell on the cruelty. I'd rather capture beauty, as meager as it might be." How do you capture beauty in your life?
Beauty is hard. Sometimes you have to train yourself to see beauty, because some things in life are not. When I was young, I was very naive. My mom used to call me Pollyanna because I had that very naive outlook on life. Maybe sometimes I still do, but I think less especially this has been a really hard year, and you and I were talking about that some last year at ACFW. It's been a hard year, and things are just, I mean, you can't sugarcoat it when life gets really bad. Things are just really difficult, and so you have to train your eyes to see the beautiful. Sometimes you have to lean into God, and I mean, like right now you hear the birds chirping, and I think sometimes, so often, most of the time, praise is a choice that we have to make.
Right.
Those birds didn't have to get up and sing this morning, but they made a choice to sing. And sometimes it's just a choice to be grateful. It's looking for the beautiful, even maybe when there's not much. It's a perspective. Which is why I think the role of the photographer in this, Gabe's role, I think was so interesting to delve into, because photography, what they capture, it's truth, it doesn't lie, but they also have a choice as to where they point the camera to.
And where they focus.
And where they focus. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I'd never really thought about that until I began writing, but yes, the camera doesn't lie, but they also have to choose what they're going to capture with it. So
that's good.
I thought that was interesting.
Well, speaking of that, so Gabe was a photographer, and he captures, moments, and I think of my life in certain times where I know that moment is going to stick out forever. Just a laugh of the kids, or even just on a bad day, seeing the sunrise or the sunset, and knowing God is still there and He sees me. What is a moment that you have seared in your mind that you want to remember forever?
That is such a profound question. There are several. Sometimes they go back to childhood. I remember I was 6 years old when I gave my life to Christ, and it's funny the things that stick out in your mind. I remember kneeling by my bed to ask Him to save me, and I remember I had strawberry shortcake bed sheets, and I remember that. I remember the birth very vividly of all my kids, but especially Bethany, when they laid her in my arms, her eyes were so big, and she was looking.
Is she your
around.
first?
Yes, she was my first. And so, with your first especially, it's just such a shock. Everything is so shocking. But her eyes were so big, and she was already looking for stuff to get into. And I just remember the first thing I did when they laid her in my arms, I just began singing "Jesus Loves Me," and her eyes just stopped looking, and she just focused on my face, and she just stayed focused on my face for like 20 minutes,
Wow.
So I just kept singing, and the nurse started crying, and then I started crying because I was hormonal anyways.
Yes.
And so that was a moment seared in my memory. Another moment, it is a good one. Another moment seared in my memories when I lost my first child, Taylor. And speaking of birds, I cried all night. Our bedroom overlooks our pond. It's in the back. You can see it. And I cried all night, and the sun was coming up, and I was just staring out the window, and I've been crying. My eyes were all puffy. It was December, and I don't know what Texas birds do, but Arkansas birds are lazy. In December, they do not sing at all when it's cold out, but there was one little bird that I heard chirping that morning, and so it just surprised me. It caught me, and maybe that's that training your eyes to see again and your ears to hear what's beautiful. But I remember just wiping my eyes because I couldn't see; they were so swollen, and I just pressed my face up against the glass, and the glass was so cold. I remembered that, and looking up in the tree above our window, and I saw the bird, and its breath was puffing out in that cold air, but it was just choosing to sing that morning. It was frigid. And I remember thinking, okay, I have a choice. Either I can choose to be bitter and angry about this, or I can thank God for the time I have with my child and know I can go to my child. He or she may not come to me, but I can go, just like David, did when he lost his child, and think, okay. And I will never forget that moment because it was pivotal in my walk with God. Okay, this is a choice I have. I'm going to choose to praise. And it took so much of the sting away. And I felt God's presence with me at that point, and His comfort and His love. So those are really key moments, I think.
Those are profound. Those are good. Okay, another quote from the book. What would it be like to love and be loved with such devotion? So most of us, especially girls, ask this question in our teens and 20s and 30s, all the way up until, we fall in love. So my question is, what is it like What is love like for you? What has surprised you? And what has been the best part and the hardest part of true love?
True love. You know, when you first get married, you think this person is never going to let you down. They're Superman. They're a hero. And then you grow up a little bit and realize you're two sinners.
Right.
In a covenant with I'm not the hero either. You're two sinners bound by a covenant to each other. And my teenage daughters and I talk a lot about this because they're growing into relationships and beginning to understand what that entails. And especially my oldest daughter has been with her boyfriend for 1.5 years. So they're past some of the puppy love stuff and getting into the more serious relationship things.
Right.
And I tell them all the time, it's really about a laying down of yourself. And that's, I mean, we've been married, my husband and I have been for 22 years. And you're past it's about the feelings and the warm squishies. It's about, it's about sacrifice. And it's about, I was listening on the radio to somebody giving relationship advice the other day, and this guy had called in and said, I just want somebody who's going to make me feel good about myself. And I thought, wow, he's got a lot to learn. He has no idea the ride that he's in for. I thought, it's not about you. It's about you giving to somebody else. And that's a beautiful thing. It's a hard thing. It really goes along the lines of the agape love that Jesus told us. That's what marks a true Christian, a true follower of him, is laying down of yourself. But I think it takes a long time to get there because it's not natural for any of us. But there's great comfort in that, because when you grow in that together, then there's great comfort and respect for each other that way. And when you're both doing it, then you're constantly giving to each other, so that just makes you love each other more.
Yes. So. I think definitely that respect and camaraderie and just thankfulness grows, you know, especially for me, especially when I see the ways I fail and, you know, I wasn't the wife I said I was going to be. You know, I remember early on I was like, I'm going to tickle his back every night for our entire lives. That did not happen.
Nope. Nope.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay, another quote from the book. He's asking about himself. Could someone like him really make his mark on the world? What kind of mark do you want to make on the world?
I used to, even up to a few years ago, it used to really bug me thinking about mortality and think, wow, if you just think a few more generations away, once I'm gone, I'll be forgotten. You know, this one of those crises we all have, I think, well, most people have, I don't know, maybe I had it, that I think, okay, I'll be forgotten. Only me, it's only me. I'll be forgotten and no one will care. And that just goes back to pride. Again, that's human pride, you know, I'll be forgotten. And I began thinking about the Casting Crowns song that came out, I think, a year or two ago, that said, you know, I don't need to leave a legacy. All I want them to remember is only Jesus. And I thought that began shifting my thinking a little bit. Okay, yeah, he's right. It's really a laying down of myself again, you know. That seems to be the theme of what Jesus wants us to do is, yes, I want every day to matter, because you only have one life to live. But in the end, is it really about me? You know, God says he's not going to share his glory with anybody. That includes myself. So if it's really not about me, that shouldn't matter what legacy I leave. The legacy I need to leave is Jesus. Just when they see me, I just hope they see Jesus. So that's been my prayer the past few years.
So that love thing again.
That love thing again. Just see Jesus. I hope that when they see me, they just think, wow, yeah, I remember her because she really loved Jesus. And when she stepped into the room, she made me feel loved, and it reminded me of Jesus. That's what I want to leave.
I think that's good. And I think even though, you know, I think that feeling of wanting to be known is put there by God, but only he can fill it. You know, it's being known by him.
Yeah. It takes us, I don't know, every decade. I told my girls this the other day. I said, you know, when you're in your 40s, you think, man, I wish I knew when I was 30 what I know now. And when I'm 50, I'll be like, man, when I was 40, I wish I knew. So when you're 90, you're like, man, I wish I knew when I was 80 what I knew when I was 90. By the time you get it figured out, God calls you home. And, and that's always what happens.
So one part of the book I really loved, and I won't say any names because I don't want to give it away, but one character noticed this little side character is just alone and by themselves. And they do something about it. They go to the character and they bring them in. That just really touches me anytime I read that in a book or anywhere, or if I see it in real life. I love that because I think we've all at times been that lonely person off by themselves. So who has done that for you in your life?
There have been a few people. Here's a secret I'm going to share with you.
Okay.
I don't let very many people get that deep. I am very introverted. People think I'm extroverted because I can get on stage and I can talk and I can be a clown. I was talking to somebody not long ago that said, Tara, you are a rodeo clown because you can you can get out there. I was like, thank you. Appreciate that. I love you too. She said, you can get out there, you can make people laugh, you can entertain, but you rarely take off the paint. And I said, yes, that's true. Maybe that's why I write, because that's the only time I really let anyone get in, maybe. I have had a few friends. There's one guy, he calls himself my second dad, who will often cut past the exterior when I'll say, I'm doing good, and he's like, but how are you really?
Yeah.
You know, and he goes to our church. He's probably close to 60, and he'll say, don't give me the fake, and I'll be like, okay. He actually says, but you're not telling me completely the truth. You know, I can tell. Okay, he doesn't want me to give the nice pat answers. He wants me to be honest.
He's taking the time to really.
He's taking the
really
time. He does, and he knows. I don't let a lot of people in, and I don't know if that's from being a preacher's kid or having to move a lot. And I don't. I've talked about this with just a handful of people in the past, saying, I wonder where that comes from. If every time I began to get close to somebody, 3 or 4 years, then we'd have to move, and it just got easier not to make super, super deep connections. I have a lot of friends, but none that are super, super deep. Yeah. And I don't know. I think, and this is probably why, my favorite name for God in the Bible is El Roi, and it means the God who sees me. That's my very favorite name for God. And one of my favorite people to read about in the Bible is Hagar. She was so mistreated. Not that I was mistreated. It's not why I connect with her, but she was just kind of shuffled around the whim of people's bidding, Abram and Sarah, and really did not have a voice for herself. But she was, I think, the very first woman in Scripture, other than Eve, at least the first woman addressed in Scripture, I have to look this up to be sure, don't quote me on this, that the Bible says she saw the angel of the Lord. And he addressed her by name and asked her, where have you come from and where are you going? And he actually called her by her name, not the slave girl or woman. He said, Hagar, where have you come from? Where are you going? He actually took time to ask her about herself. Like, what are your plans? What are you doing? And he saw her and saw her tears. It said he saw her tears and comforted her and encouraged her. And she said, he is the God who sees me. You are the God who sees me. And that, one time I get teary just talking about it, that means so much to me, because I feel like God himself is probably the only one who has ever really seen me and still loves me, probably because he's the only one I've ever let really see the real me. So that's something I need to work on, in all honesty.
I think that's a fine line to walk, because you can't just let everybody in, because, like the little mortar shells or whatever in the book, some people, once they get in, well, anybody, the closer you are, the more somebody can slice you and dice you. Right. And it doesn't take very many times of being sliced and diced to not want to be sliced again. Right. But, and then, Yeah, and then trying to figure out, do they really want to know, or are they just wanting the quick answer, or are they just wanting what they can get from me?
Right.
You know, oh, you're a famous author. And
Yes.
will you help me? And all of that.
Somebody came up to me one time in a Christian bookstore when they saw that I was chatting online. I had been at a Books and Such retreat, and I was laughing and cutting up with Lorraine Snelling, who I adore, and there's nothing I love more than to aggravate her. I don't know why. I love aggravating her. And so they saw that I was joking around with Lorraine Snelling, and they came up to me in the bookstore and just began touching me like this. I was like, hello? And they said, you know Lorraine Snelling, can I touch you? And I was like, really? You know?
Yes.
So there, yeah, and I just laughed, and I was like, she's a person. She's just a person, you know. And sorry, Lorraine, you're just a person. And so, but it's funny to me. And so, yes, and I think some of it comes with my personality type too. I'm just very cautious about who I'm just very.
And not that there's anything wrong with being a mega fan, because I'm a mega fan of a lot of people.
Yes.
But yeah, we just don't want to use them. We want to bless them, and
yeah.
Totally. And one thing I love about being a Christian is that I know that I'll get to know all these people in heaven. Maybe not on earth.
That's right.
Unless we room together.
That's right. Maybe I'll get a room with Hagar someday. Who knows?
Yes, that's right.
I can ask her all about it.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask one more question in this section, and then we'll go to the just for fun questions. And you've had a lot of rain in Arkansas lately.
Yes, flooding.
So I don't think if I ask a sparky question, anything will catch on fire.
No. No, you are safe. We are very wet.
So our sparky question here that, anyways, so control and gender roles are a theme in the book.
Yes.
And I thought you did it so well. You showed multiple perspectives and opinions really well, and how they came to that opinion. And so my question for you is, what have you learned about the way a man and a woman relate to each other in a love relationship, you know, or marriage?
Well, I think this is always interesting when I wear this. Yes. People, I think, want to say that men and women have exactly the same attributes, meaning, yes, they are equal, but they're not equal. Does that make sense? They complement and complete each other in a relationship. Women have their unique gifts, men have their unique gifts, and they're meant to come together and, like a puzzle, just fit perfectly with each other. In the story, Cassie is, I don't think I'm going to give it away. If you see the back cover blurb, you're going to know, but Cassie has had to take on the role of a man to enlist.
To disguise herself.
To disguise herself as a man for very complicated reasons. Gabe does not like that for obvious, especially Civil War, 1800s, that is just not done. And the women's movement was starting up, and so that was a whole giant can of worms. It's still an issue today. He thought women's place was in the home. They only had very specific roles, which there is a time and a place for that. However, I think feminists have to be careful, because if you go and make such sparks. You have to be careful, because if you're constantly saying we have to do everything exactly the same, you degrade men's gifts, and you don't elevate women for their God-given gifts as well. We all bring beautiful things to the table.
We don't have to be the same.
We don't have to
equally
be
valued.
Exactly.
We can have different gifts and
have different gifts.
Personalities.
On the opposite end of that, there was a time and a place, and still is a time and a place for issues that need to be addressed. Women should get equal pay for the equal amount of work that they do. I totally believe that. However, you don't want to overreach and say men deserve less. And that's definitely a problem. I think sometimes men get degraded in the feminist argument, but there was a time and a place in our history where women couldn't even own property, which was during Cassie's time. They had no say in the welfare of their children. If their husband died, they just had no rights whatsoever. And so Cassie came along in a time when it was pivotal for what happened with women.
Right.
And that was a hard thing for a lot of men to understand. They weren't really trying to revolutionize things just for the sake of revolutionizing them. It was, what are going to happen to these women and children without men, a quarter of the population? The men's population died.
Yeah.
And so it was a very interesting time in history.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the most careful way I can word it. So without being like, eh.
And I loved the author's note at the end, was it the acknowledgement or author's note? But just citing that this really happened. There were women who dressed up as men and got into
at
the
least
war.
400 that they know of, probably more. They just don't have good documentation because some of them hit it well and some of them got caught. So it's hard to know for sure.
You know, you think of some men are bookkeepers and not strong at all, and some women are farm girls and bale the hay, you know?
Cassie was a real, based on a real woman, based on Sarah Emma Edmondson. She went by Emma, but in Emma's journal, she wrote how odd that a woman has to teach a man the art of war, because she was a farm girl, knew how to load a gun, was excellent. She used to pick foxes and hawks off the chicken coop. Yeah. And so when she enlisted, she had to teach city boys how to load and fire a gun.
Right.
Because they didn't know. So she was like, this is really odd. But
one tiny little tidbit, I don't remember what book it was, what author it was, but it was a woman trying to get a job at a store and they would not hire her. And she was like, I want this job, I need this job. Yes. And he said to her, I cannot in good conscience give you this job when I know men with families to support who need the job, and you are still under your father's care.
Right.
And that, I think I was a teenager when I read that, and I was just like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yes.
You know, so sometimes living in that time period helps you to understand all the nuances of different opinions and how good people can be on different sides of an issue. Okay. I'm not sure how our time is going, so I'm going to do these pretty fast.
Okay.
And somebody is weed eating over there, so hopefully y'all can't hear
we
that.
We almost made through it.
So just for fun, if you could go anywhere in the world, no restrictions, where would you go?
Israel.
Okay.
I've always wanted to go to Israel.
Okay. Favorite food or dessert or both?
Favorite food? Anything Italian.
Okay.
Close second would be Mexican. Okay. Depends on my mood.
Yes.
Dessert, anything involving ice cream or chocolate.
Okay.
Don't care.
All right. I agree with those. Favorite movie or show or both?
Okay, movie, I have a three-way tie, and it's going to sound really weird. My tastes are very eclectic. Count of Monte Cristo.
That's a good one. Very romantic, too.
Very romantic. It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay.
Favorite Christmas movie. And it sounds so dumb, but Monty Python and Search for the Holy Grail.
Okay.
So I like dumb movies as well as,
very lots of genres represented.
Yes, Jim Rubart asked me to give my favorite three movies, help me decide the theme of my life, and I said those three. He was like, okay, wow.
What was the theme of your life?
I don't remember. It's been too many years ago. I think it was like forgiveness and redemption and something along those lines.
That makes sense. That's good. If you could go back and tell yourself something as a teenager, what would you tell yourself?
To be kind to myself. To be kind to myself.
That's good.
Yeah.
How did you know that your husband was the man for you?
We clicked right away.
Okay.
We clicked. We just got along way too well. There was just a peace when I was with him, a God-given peace when I was with him.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, would you want to share an embarrassing moment?
I will. There have been many. An easy one was I was playing basketball. I was a starter for my high school basketball team.
Okay.
And
she's very tall. You can't tell
I'm very
here.
tall. I'm like 5'10". And we were losing, so this was not super embarrassing. We were already losing by like 20 points. But you know, when they switch the side of the ball court at halftime, you start, you switch after halftime and you start playing on the other end of the court for your team. I was so proud of myself because the ball bounced off the rim, and I just grabbed it and immediately put up the most beautiful layup.
For the other team.
For the other team, yes. And my coach just started
How
yelling,
old
Tara.
were you?
16.
Oh yeah, old enough to be
he
embarrassed.
said, Tara, you dunderhead, you're out. So I was like, whoops, sorry, forgot.
Sorry,
You know.
I hope no one was watching that. Oh,
yeah.
cameras everywhere.
But yes, and so the boys from the high school team, we always shared a bus, the girls and the boys. And but a friend of mine, Chris Pettis, he played for the boys. We wore the same number. He was 42, I was 42. And he stood up and he goes, "That's okay, Tara Meyer, you're still my friend. It's okay."
Oh, good.
And he was waving the towel and making it worse because he wouldn't be quiet. You know.
Yes.
So I was like, "Thank you, Chris." So
Can we move on?
yes, let's move on. So yeah.
I have one similar to that.
Yes.
I was younger, so it doesn't matter as
Yeah.
much. But my dad was the coach, and it was a close game. And at the end, if there's certain conditions, you foul the person who has the ball.
Yes.
And then the game stops, and they shoot, and you have a chance to rebound and get the ball back.
Yes.
So he was telling us, foul, foul, foul. Well, you're supposed to foul the person with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. So I just found my girl and I shoved her. And she's like, "What is your problem?" And I was like, "I got to foul you." And the referee didn't call anything because we were far away from the ball. So I shoved her again. And my mom has video of me shoving her all the way across the court.
That's awesome. Like, I'm just going to foul somebody. I don't care who it is.
Yeah,
so
so
I'm just,
foul. Dad said to foul, I'm fouling.
I'm fouling.
Yes.
You're a very literal child.
I am. I'm still a very literal woman.
I love that.
Okay, last question. Tell us about a time you laughed so hard you peed your pants or cried or just couldn't stop.
Well, usually my moments like that come in very inappropriate, like you're not supposed to laugh. We were talking about this with some friends actually last week. I was eating dinner with Frank Peretti, Jennifer Dornbush, Mick Silva, and we got on this
that. That
topic.
was really
yeah,
cool.
it was fun, but conversation lagged for a little bit, so I was like, what are the funniest things that have happened, like in church or a funeral? Because that's when I find that I just get so tickled I can't. Because you're not supposed to laugh, you know.
Because you're thinking, do not laugh.
Do
which
not
makes you
laugh. But so it's always those situations or teaching children, because I love children and the things that come out of their mouths. I've got a whole Word document in my computer full of things from teaching tiny tots at
that's
church.
Awesome.
So those are always hilarious. So I'll give you two.
Okay.
Well, no, maybe I should give you three. We could be here all day if you want. Okay, so a few weeks ago, I was teaching the tiny tots, beginners, in our church about Zacharias and Elizabeth. Zacharias getting the prophecy about John the Baptist. And they could remember Zacharias, the name, and they could remember that they were going to have a baby named John. They could not remember the name Elizabeth. And we had been over it, and I had done games with them to help them remember, and they just couldn't get it. And so I was doing another exercise to help them remember. So I said, "Okay, guys, we've got to get this. You get some candy as a treat if you can get this." I said, "What was Zechariah's wife's name?" So close, and they all just blank stares, you know. And so I said, "Okay, come on. I know it's on the tip of your tongues. I know it is. I can see it. Starts with the E." And little Alex goes, "Wait. E. Elizabeth. I said, "That's right. Good job, buddy." He said, I know how I remembered that, because it's just like, "I'm coming, Elizabeth, I'm coming. It's the big one, Elizabeth," from Sanford and Son. And I fell against the wall. I started laughing so hard. He's 5 years old. I said,
he's seen it somewhere.
I said, Sanford and Son. So that's how the whole class began remembering Elizabeth's name in the Bible, as they all fall against the wall and go, "I'm coming, Elizabeth, it's the big one." So that just made me laugh. The other time was we were at a very sad, serious funeral, like most funerals are.
Yes.
And it was time to go view the casket for the final time. And the man in front of us stood up. He was maybe 90 years old, and he had a horrible bout of gas.
Oh.
And it was loud.
Oh.
And it ricocheted off the building.
Oh, Tara.
And my daughters got so tickled.
Oh, poor guy. Maybe he couldn't hear.
I don't know. But
Really?
I think he did, because he turned to his wife and pointed at her.
Like she did
Like
it?
she did it, and she shook her head and pointed at him like, "You know that was you. Don't even act like that was me." And my daughters got so tickled, and they just were turning red and could not, and then their laughter got me laughing. And he proceeded to have it all the way up the aisle as he was on his way out. It just would not stop. And people were just turning around, and the whole place was just trying not to laugh.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that was not good.
Yes.
But it was just inappropriate, you know, so
Yes.
you're not supposed to laugh at a funeral. Yeah, so yeah, it was not good.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
That poor guy. So even when you're very old and in love, you're still gonna
Yeah,
blame the other person.
she was like, don't
Not
even
me.
blame me. That was you and you know it. So, but yeah, we just had to wait till we got out into the car and then but it's not nearly as fun in a place where you're free to laugh. It's just,
right.
It was like the episode of the Mary Tyler Moore Show at Chuckles the Clown funeral. I don't know if you ever saw that episode, but this very famous clown in their city died. And his name was Chuckles, and everybody got in their laughter out about Chuckles the clown dying, except for Mary. And they got into the funeral, and she got the giggles and just couldn't stop laughing. That whole episode, that big climax, is her just losing it during Chuckles the clown funeral. And
as an actress or as a person?
As a person,
okay,
just there.
yes.
So she just lose it. She couldn't. She just kept losing it, and so yeah. So it's such a funny episode because we've all been there when at church, you know, something horrible happening.
Church,
you just
weddings,
can't.
funerals.
Church wedding. Yes, you just can't. So that's always what cracks me up is when something awful happens. And Shonda Pierce said, "I just wait for my pastor to mess up. I'm there with my notepad, just waiting every Sunday for him to mess up. It's the best time."
Well, I love having you as a friend
and
someone that I could laugh with and blame if
That's right. No, that was Jenny. That was not me. That was not me.
So thank you very much for doing this interview.
Thank you
and
so
if you
much.
would like a chance to, let's see if I can get past the sun here. I think we're in it no matter what. If you would like to enter the contest to win Where Dandelions Bloom by Tara Johnson, just check the description right here on YouTube, and it'll have the link of where to go to enter that. And if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing, and so you don't miss the next interview or book review. So Tara, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun. I enjoyed it.
Bye guys.
Bye.